Rob, welcome. We are live. We are recording. We met through Move.
We did.
We've been working together on a one-to-one basis now for probably the best part of 6 months. You're a client. I've been one of your coaching clients. We'll dive into all that today. But welcome to the Made to Be Social podcast. Most people in our Move audience will already know who you are. But for anyone in my other audience that doesn't know who you are, in the immortal words of Cilla Black, say that to everyone. What's your name and where do you come from?
So my name is Rob Rave. I come from London and I'm moving up to Liverpool.
What a killer name that is, Rob Rave.
Yeah, it cost me a lot of money to buy that name.
Yeah. It's like trademarked. So what is it that you specialise in now and what's your background?
Okay, so I specialise in what I call flip performance. Now, flip performance is a one-to-one confidential session up to 40 minutes for people who are stuck, for people who have decisions to make, problems to solve. I like to consider myself like a plumber who comes along and helps people get unstuck. Flip performance came about as a result of me doing 8 years at a company called EY, Ernst & Young, where I was the sole dedicated coach working with about 35 to 50 partners and directors every month. So I've done thousands of sessions. And what I found is not everybody needs 3 months or 6 months of coaching.
Yeah, keep going.
They just need to be getting going. They need to be getting unstuck. They need to be getting moving. So the whole purpose of the flip performance are single sessions where I focus on coaching and change work for an individual. So classic examples would be over-worrying, over-analysing, just stuck where you can't see the wood for the trees. So I help them get clarity and they move forward. Typically, interview preparation is a good one. I mean, you yourself had a session with me, so do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, as a one-off session, I didn't really know what to expect, if I'm honest. And then when I got into it, and I'm not saying this because you were clients and you're a good mate of mine now, like, I was pretty mind-blown after the fact. And I know for sure that it's had the same sort of impact with other people because they've told me, without you actually prompting them to tell me. So you know that's a good thing when other people are talking about you, because I always think, no matter how much marketing we do and how much sales stuff we do in the business, people throw, hundreds of thousands of pounds in a month, like, for sales and marketing, don't they? None of that's better than someone else can always sell you your services better than you can sell your own.
100%.
Like, so having that feedback actually and that positive, feedback loop is, I know that it works because it kind of put me in a totally different mind frame, to be fair. Anyway, we'll dive into all this. But I want to get a bit back, because one thing I noticed from your socials and just knowing you now is you're a big film buff. Mm-hmm. So what got you into that in the first place?
Wow.
Have you always had an interest in films?
I've always had an interest in films. I think the earliest film that I can remember that had an impact on me was Taxi Driver. So from then onwards, really, I loved all these sort of Robert De Niro style films and the Martin Scorsese, the way he directs and the big blockbusters they've done, and all of the stuff, Godfather, and although he didn't do Godfather, but that genre, I like retro gangster stuff. That's the stuff I like.
Yeah,
really like.
For sure. For me, it was the reason why I got into video in the first place was because I was just watching a shitload of films.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going out clubbing and drinking and such anymore. So I was kind of sitting in the house with a glass of red wine watching films.
Yes.
And I kind of just got fascinated by old 90s, late 80s, early 90s slapstick comedy. They were really stupid, silly comedy. Like the old early Jim Carrey films and remember Hear No Evil, See No Evil and all that.
Yes.
Like Richard Pryor and all that.
Yeah, I love Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Or even John Candy in the late 80s. Do really the slapstick stuff that
yes.
Very throwaway.
Yes.
And that's kind of my humour anyway.
Yes.
And that kind of really shaped it. And then I remember when YouTube came out in like 2004, 2005, maybe 06, maybe. When I like at that point in time, YouTubers wasn't like a term that was coined. It was just people putting silly videos on YouTube. So I kind of got like, went down a bit of a rabbit hole. And then I was following someone on Twitter. I can't even think who it was. And he just put on there. There's so much value in this video from Casey Neistat. And I just thought, so let's click it and see what it's about. Clicked it, went onto YouTube. And there was a video by Casey Neistat. This must be about 10 years old now. Called Fat and Lazy. And it's not actually about fat and lazy people. It's about procrastination and how to manage your time better. And the way he shot that video and the way he just framed the way he spoke in that video was a real turning point for me, because that's where I really got interested in, like, right, I could do videos like that. And it wasn't like, he's an amazing filmer. He's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world now. But I didn't know who he was at the time. And I just loved the way he shot the video, loved everything about it. Not to copy, but just to kind of just inspo. And I was like, I can do that. And one of his messages was always, he hates like the cinematic editing style, and he likes the kind of rough around the edges, shaky camera, kind of running down the street sort of stuff. And I was like, that's me. Like, I'm rough around the edges, and that's what I want. That's the content I want to make. So from then on, I just started making that style of content.
Nice.
And then kind of rolled into doing the slapstick comedy sort of stuff. So if you looked at my really early videos when I first started, it was just like doing stupid special effects in the garden and stuff. But it was really shaped from films. And that's why I'm fascinated when I come across people like yourself who had got into films from a film background themselves.
Well, the other reason that I like films as well is that I hang around a lot with actors. And actors, funnily enough, there's a lot of actors who end up coaching because it's around performance and it's around method acting or different styles of acting. So I think, in films, you've got the mixture, you've got the creative piece, you've got the, you've got all the writers, you've got the actors, but the actual performance piece is very closely linked to coaching. There's a very famous coach called Dan Sullivan, who's called the strategic coach. Don't know if you ever come across him. He's pretty much out there in terms of entrepreneurs. To go on his program, you need to be earning a certain amount. But he specializes in entrepreneurs. And guess what his background is? Working with actors. Because actors are around performance. Sport is around performance. Actors and sports people have one thing in common. They both want to get into the flow state. They both want to get into the zone.
Yeah.
So great coaches, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, doesn't mean, other coaches agree, but in my view of the world, if you can help someone step into flow, whether that be for seconds, minutes, moments, whatever it is, but when people are in flow, then incredible things happen, because then they're performing at their best. So an actor doing some incredible scenes is in flow. Michael Jordan, when he was, playing, was in flow. Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing, that is amazing. How do you find actors generally?
I was going to say challenging. Not all of them are challenging, but idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
Idiosyncratic, but individuals, very, very much into their individual expression, their individual view of the world.
Yeah.
I like actors.
I found a new respect for actors when I became a content creator, because I realised how hard it was to speak on the spot.
Yeah.
And to act in that way, on the spot, essentially.
Yes.
Is a fucking hard skill set, right? Really hard
skill set.
So, as a coach, when you look at that, is there like a method to get them into that state, or can some people just like snap into it?
It's interesting. I did a podcast a few months ago. I won't tell you with who. It's a friend of mine who's an actor. And I was really surprised because he does the best Robert De Niro that I've ever seen. I mean, he really is good at the Robert De Niro impression. And I had to really push him to do it on the podcast.
These shoes.
Was that Robert De Niro? Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
I thought it might be Stephen Graham. But But what was interesting is that he was very sort of hesitant of showing off, which is surprising because you think actors want to show off.
Yeah.
But generally, the actors that I've worked with so far, I've found them to be brilliant to work with because they're performers.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, they know what it takes.
Their kind of job depends on the level of performance that they give.
Yeah, and their level of performance is the degree to which they can enter into flow. Because the more you're in flow, the less self-conscious you are.
Yeah.
The less you're thinking, the more you're just being it. You're being and doing it.
So how do you find the film industry generally?
I find it fascinating. I've always been fascinated by it because you've got the mix of creativity and finance.
Is it as mad as it seems from the outside?
I think so, yeah. I think so because you've got such a mix. You've got a contrarian mix. You've got money and you've got creativity and freedom. And you can't do anything without the money. And you also need the creative people as well. Yeah. So it's this fusion, which is really fascinating.
Is there a big discrepancy between sort of, is it like a small percent eats up a lot of the percentage of money?
Yeah.
And then
that's pretty much it.
Like you get a lot of starving actors.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I see it. Yeah. That's how I see it.
So in terms of working with them sort of people, do you find it challenging? Like, do they find it challenging financially to maintain that sort of lifestyle?
Yes, the ones that I know, because we're talking about, it's like footballers. Majority of footballers don't earn thousands a week. Majority of footballers are part-time or semi-professionals, you know, just making a living. It's the same actors.
Yeah.
It's the same with actors, cameramen, directors, you know, there's a lot of them around.
And when you look at even like the tax system in business, like in this country now, I mean, you got 1% of the ultra rich paying 30% of taxes. So surely, like even like digressing a little bit, but even the country should probably make it more appealing to these super rich people to come to the country, not discourage it.
Yes. Yes.
But what you'd end up with is, someone said this, I can't even think of it as, I've seen it on a podcast or a video or something, that the UK generally is a very poor country attached to a very wealthy city.
Yes, yes. I would agree with that.
Yeah, same. And like you see it, like, I mean, I was down in London a few months back, and even just the general busyness of the place. And coming up here, it seems dead almost, right? Yes. And like Liverpool's like bustling.
Yes.
And it seems dead.
Yes.
Compared to when you go to London. So noisy. Like not like physical noise, but like just like the stimulation central, right? Yeah. Like there's always something happening. Like no matter what way you turn.
Definitely.
So it's like I don't know, like, because I'm not an actor, but I suppose it's really hard to just sort of like be around it and maintain that lifestyle, right?
Well, you say you're not an actor. We're all actors. We're all performing. We might not think at the moment, I might not think, oh, I'm performing, but we're both performing now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because we've got a mic in front of us and we're looking to communicate. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, podcasting, to me, like, I've got this prediction that in like 10 years' time, everyone will have a YouTube channel. And even like the likes of ITV and Channel 4 and the traditional like sort of broadcasting channels will be digital in that sense. I agree. Because the way, I mean, the amount of people I'm speaking to that are giving up their TV licenses, just not paying it.
Yes.
Basically, I'm not saying that defunding the BBC, but essentially defunding, you know, the taxpayers would rather spend 24 quid a month for a family subscription on YouTube than pay the TV license.
Yes. Is it okay if I redirect the conversation now? Because we've been talking about acting and films, which is fantastic. Yeah. Can we talk about flip?
Of course.
And flip performance? Is
that right? So with flip and coaching, how does that relate back to what we've been talking about? Like, is it predominantly working with actors or HR people or whatever?
Okay, so flip performance really comes out of me working with directors and partners of high performing, essentially what they call the big four, which is Ernst & Young, PwC, Deloitte, and KPMG.
So tell me, so just start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your time at Ernst & Young. Okay. And give me a bit of background because I'm not from the...
Okay, so if I do a quick I'll do a quick bit of my background. So I originally started off as a sports coach. I was a tennis coach for a number of years, many, many years. That got me into performance. It got me interested in something called the inner game of tennis, inner game of golf, inner game of work.
Is that referring to mindset?
It's referring to mindset, but it's also referring to attention. So the whole point of that is that was the forerunner to what's called the GROW model.
Yeah.
And the GROW model is used in a lot of corporates. It's a coaching model. So that got me interested very early on in coaching. I then did sports coaching and I started to work with people. I then got the best job that anybody could possibly want because I ended up being the only dedicated coach out of 22 people who were coaches at Ernst & Young, and everybody wanted my job because I was the only paid one. They were doing it on the side of their desks. And I was there, and my sole purpose was to do powerful churn through lots of people, giving them a really good experience, not spending too much time with them, and helping them move forward as an internal coach. So I did that for 8 years.
Nice.
And that was the best thing I've ever done because it gave me thousands and thousands of hours working with high performers. And when you work with high performers, you realize something that nobody tells you. High performers have the same stuff going on as we all do. They have doubts, they have issues, they have problems, they have uncertainties, they have stuckness.
And what type of people were these? Were these like lawyers?
These were
HR?
lawyers,
Yeah.
predominantly lawyers, and accountants, tax specialists, mergers and acquisitions, and
So
consultants.
how did you cross over from that to actors?
Because in essence, I know a lot of people who are in the sort of creative and film and television business, and it just naturally came about.
Right.
It naturally came about, but my core business is not dealing with actors because they don't, most actors don't have the money. So I'm working with some actors, but my core business is working with high performers in business.
So just through my self-development, geeking out sort of thing,
Yeah.
is there like a common trait that you notice between lawyers, actors, HR people, business people, entrepreneurs, all the people that you kind of work with?
No.
Is there a common thread between all them people that you notice in the highest achieving?
I would say the common thread that I notice is we've all got blocks and interferences to performance, or blocks and interferences to problem solving, or blocks and interferences to the situation.
Are they
that we're in.
self-imposed, or like are they mainly self-imposed, or like from an external?
I would say mainly self-imposed. And when I worked a lot with the directors and partners at this global firm, what you find is you find a guy who's on, think of the number, big numbers, big money.
Couple of 100,000 a year, maybe.
Sorry?
Couple of 100,000 a year, maybe.
Plus.
£500,000 a year.
Plus.
£1 million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my clients is on that, but generally it's between 2 and 5.
Yeah.
Those guys, they are masters of the universe, but they've got blocks. They've got stuff that they need to work on. And what I used to do with a lot of them is help them make the move from one level to the other. And what it is, they've got to come in front of somebody or 3 people right now on a panel and appear to have gravitas, appear to be authentic, appear to be in control, appear to be peer-to-peer. Status-wise, it has to be peer-to-peer. And they are like you and me in the sense that they're like, oh, this is a big one. I've got to raise my game. I've got to raise my performance. So I would say the commonality is how we keep ourselves blocked, stuck. And so, yes, there's a huge mindset piece. There's also a piece about letting go of all the thoughts and going back to the original comment I made. The commonality of all of these people is they don't step into flow easily, or they don't know how to step into flow, or they haven't been in flow around this context. They're stuck. When you're stuck, you cannot be in flow because you're like, am I doing all right? If I'm stuck now, I'm going, oh, look, the camera's pointing at me. Oh, I've got this seasoned professional interviewing me. Oh, am I, you can't have that when you're in performance or when you're performing. You need to be totally free of internal dialogue.
I love it, mate. I love that. So you said you mentioned the grow framework, but how did the flip framework come to be?
Okay, so the flip framework came to be because whilst I was working for a big corporate, what you'll find is people don't put their hands up to do things because they're like, oh, I'm not taking on more work. I did the opposite. I took on more work. So I introduced flip to this big organization because I'd just come off of it was actually a training gig that I did called Conversations That Stick for a company called Travis Perkins and Wix. So I had I had 300 managers, regional managers all over the country, different locations from Carlisle all the way down south. Didn't do one in Liverpool, funny enough, but went all over the country, Carlisle, Bristol, all over the place. And this was helping regional managers have conversations because they had spent a huge amount of money and people know about the theory of coaching. They don't know how to do coaching. So I was basically there to help them become adept at developing others and using a coaching methodology that doesn't mean that you have to spend an hour. I call it minutes and moments. So how do you coach someone for 2 minutes? How do you coach someone for 5 minutes? How do you coach someone for 15 minutes as a leader or a manager? It's a skill set that everybody says they have, but nobody actually does it.
Yeah.
Because it's too difficult. The reason it's too difficult is if you use the GROW model, and the GROW model is a brilliant model, but it's goals, reality, options, will. And it's a linear model. Flip is not a linear model. Flip is a model that has underpinning it. It has evidence-based frameworks that underpin it. And it's also about, as you know, you can never predict how something's going to go. You have to be fluid. And that's why a major part of flip is, you asked me about acting. I met a lot of actors because I've done a lot of improv in my time. Because one of my friends is one of the leading improv teachers in the world. So I hang around with him a lot because you learn so much from improv. Improv is a fantastic tool for networking. It's a fantastic tool for coaching.
Have you ever seen the film In Bruges?
I've heard of it.
With Colin Farrell. Well, there's a scene in that film where they're all sitting around a table and it's completely improvised. It's one of the best scenes you'll ever see.
Right.
Go and watch that film.
Yeah, no, I will do. I will do.
It's quite dry.
Yes.
But I fucking love it.
Well, the thing about improv that's so powerful is that you go with the client. With your partner. So if we were doing improv, my job is to make you look good. Your job is to make me look good. We build on each other. There's a whole thing from improv called yes and. So if I say something and you go, yes, but it's not going to work, scene's dead. If I say, hi, I'm a doctor, and you go, no, you're not, you're Rob. You've stopped the scene.
Yeah.
If I go, hi, I'm a doctor, oh, what do you specialise in, Rob? I specialise in working with people who are blocked. You know, you build off each other. So yes and is a major part of improv.
Love it.
And I've designed that into the whole flip framework. So one of the sayings of improv, which I just use for flip, is freedom within structure. So you've got the flip model, FLIP. Within that, you've got the freedom, once you understand the model, to go in different directions.
Flexibility inside frameworks.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. For anyone who might not know what the flip model acronym is, talk us through that.
Well, flip stands for focus, look and listen, impact, and plan. Now, when I say it like that, it's difficult to understand, but in essence, where it always starts is focus of attention. So anybody will tell you, whether they're a trainer, a mentor, or a coach, you need to have a goal or you need to have an outcome. But it's not always that simple, because people say, yeah, I know what I want. But when you actually ask them, so if you could have that, would you take it? Yeah. Really? So even checking out a goal is so important, because people will throw out a goal, but it's not their goal. Mm. They're conditioned, or they believe they should be saying something. But do you really want that?
Yeah, completely.
So I believe in the old, what's her name? Jerry Halliwell. You know, what do you really, really want? I think that's, but testing what
Tell me
someone
what
wants.
you want, what you really, really want.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you know what someone wants and they're prepared to do whatever it takes within their worldview, within their world, that gets interesting. And that's why Flip's been designed for what I call uber or hyper-focused work.
I love it.
Where we focus on, everybody thinks that big change needs something big. It doesn't. Change needs movement. It needs, a small change can ripple out.
Yeah.
And when people are stuck, when they're procrastinating, when they're overthinking, when they're overanalyzing, when they're not in flow, what they need is movement. And that's why a single session is so powerful, because providing it gets you moving on what I call the ABCs, the actions, behaviors, or conversations. And sometimes the actions is you reflecting. But, the other day I was doing a session with someone that and in the session they said, right, I'm doing this. And that to me is what it's about. If you can get someone moving in a session, doing something, it's like confidence. You said, what joins all these people together? And I didn't really have a good answer at the time, but you hadn't warmed me up, you see. Now I'm warming up now.
Are you in flow now?
I'm getting more into flow now, yeah. But the whole idea about confidence, there's a lovely phrase that I use, It's like change the do and change the view, or change the view, then change the do. So you can change your perception and then act more confident, or you can just do confidence and then change your perspective of how confident you are.
I don't know if it's an NLP thing or something, but it used to be act as if.
Yeah.
So if you're not that thing, act as if you are until you are.
Right. So act as if is a massively useful frame, and it comes from many places, but that was so good because I'm so focused now on what I need to do. Now, he knew Flip anyway, because he'd been working with me for several months. So he knew, because he wants to bring Flip into his business as a cultural change piece. But he knew Flip, so he knew the sort of questions. But because he knew the questions as well, it helped him just go totally focus. Totally focus on him being at his best, him being at flow, and him delivering the best interview that he's delivered in years, because he hasn't had interviews.
I love that. So good. So good. Have you ever heard of... so I'm fascinated with storytelling. That's why I'm asking about the acting stuff.
Yeah.
Because storytelling it will beat any algorithm.
Yes.
It will beat any trend.
Yes.
Storytelling will last the test of time, right?
Okay.
And so I'm fascinated with story.
Yeah, well...
And I'll divulge something in a minute, but...
Okay, so let me tell you a quick story about my first ever coaching session, which is 100% true. My first ever coaching session happened with John Whitmore, who devised the Grow model. And he said, Rob, you go and coach this guy. And I was like, really? Coach this guy? He's a double Olympic gold medalist hurdler. And I had the session with a double Olympic gold medalist hurdler, who's a beautiful, lovely chap, beautiful guy. So there he is, a double Olympic gold medalist, and I'm this trainee coach. And he wasn't arrogant, he was just totally humble. And it was all about raising awareness. Ultimately, coaching is about awareness, choice, and trust. That comes from the inner game. When you're aware of something, awareness is in itself curative. When you're aware that you're not good at something, you can then be better at it. Otherwise, you're blissfully unaware, unconscious incompetence. Yeah. But when you're consciously incompetent, you know you're not good at it. It's like your story. You knew you weren't good at the photography and the filming when you started. So you worked to get yourself consciously competent. Yeah. Now you're unconsciously competent, which means that you can get into the flow state. Yeah. So it parallels that. So my first ever coaching session was difficult because I'm coaching a hurdler. Yeah. But I know now that I've coached venture capitalists. I've coached people who are earning huge amounts of money. I mean, one of my stories, I can't name him, but one of my first coaching in a sports context was the guy who owned Chelsea Football Club. I learned a lot from meeting him. I learned that just because someone's worth millions and millions of pounds doesn't mean they're not insecure, doesn't mean they're not trying to impress you with all their status. Because when I saw him play sport, I understood what it was about, because he gripped on to the racket as if it were, really tight, really tight. So whether you're into property, whether you're into filming, whether you're into being an accountant, your ability to have relaxed attention, your ability to be able to step into flow. Because when you step into flow, you enjoy what you do. I mean, you must enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
And you must have those times when you just, you feel blissed. You feel like you're on a higher plane.
Yeah. Well, I love the term flexibility inside frameworks.
Yeah.
Because that's like what I try to give my clients. It's like, without systems and frameworks, you basically just got a chaotic mess.
Yes.
But that's not so rigid that you're stuck to it all the time.
Yes.
It doesn't mean my day has to look the same every single day.
Exactly. And also, if you're in that fluidity piece, if you're in that flow piece, what it means is that you can create in the moment something that you've never even thought of before, because you've got access in flow. You've got access to a thing that most people don't have access to. Do you know what that is? Gut instinct.
Love it.
Inner knowing. When you're in flow, you know what you need to do.
I love that.
You know what you need to do.
I work off frameworks all the time, and I'll go into a few now. So with content stuff, there's the Hive framework, like it's a Beehive. Right. The Hive framework is hook, intrigue, value, exit.
Hook.
So you hook the person.
Yeah.
You add some intrigue, so you keep them
intrigue.
Hooked.
Yeah.
Then you add some value, so you don't have
value.
Some value from the video or whatever it is, and then exit. Which is a call to action or to finishing the story.
And for the purpose of this podcast, I'm obviously asking you to clearly define it, because I had no idea what you were saying there because of your very broad Scouse accent.
So there's the Hive framework, which I use quite often. Yeah. Did you know that pigs can help you as well?
Pigs, go on, give me the acronym.
Storytelling. So pigs is people's perceived reality.
Yes.
Is the pig.
Yeah.
So
what they think is true.
What they think is true right now.
Yeah.
So the example I always give is people looking to lose weight.
Yeah.
Because everyone can kind of relate to that.
Yeah.
So take a woman who's 50, wants to lose a bit of weight, wants to get back in shape, and her reality is, well, I'm 50 now, so I'm never going to be able to get in shape, and I'm a bit past it.
That's a perception.
That's a perceived reality. Yeah. The I is the ideal situation, which is, in an ideal world, where would you like to be? The G is the gap. Yeah. So what's the gap between the perceived reality and the ideal situation? Yeah. And then the S is solution. What's the solution to that problem? So perceived reality. Yeah. The ideal situation. Yeah. And them two things, you've got to create a gap between them two things.
I really like that. Okay, so Flip came from a piece of work I did with Travis Perkins and Wix, which they wanted to have conversations that stick, all good stuff, sticking wood. Sorry, I'm banging on your banging on your wall here. And to make something stick, it needs to be effective, which is why I introduced them to Flip. I created the Flip model, and Flip is around focused attention. If I go into your cab and I don't know where I'm going, where are we going to go? So I need to have the focus of attention. I want to go to Leeds. Take me to Leeds. So the focus of attention is the goal, but it's also your focus of attention on that goal. So we can zoom into the goal, we can zoom out and see how it affects the system. So when you achieve what you want to achieve in this business, what impact will that have? What effects will it have? So Flip is a brief model that comes from proven work across all sorts of people, but particularly with drug addicts, particularly with offenders. So part of my background is I used to work with prisoners as well, doing Flip in a prison situation, which is, you get super focused when I'm coaching you and I know that we're in a locked room and you're a prisoner. I need to be useful to you, otherwise you may get a bit angry with me.
Yeah.
I used to do coaching sessions with a guy with Ray-Bans.
How did you find working with people like that?
I loved it. I loved it because it's high challenge. You see, flip is great for high challenging situations where there's pressure, things need to change, they don't know how, they're stuck, there's a problem. So flip also comes from this world of brief interventions, and it fits under what's called single session work.
Nice.
Which means there's a whole industry which says you don't need to come and see me 39 times if you're stuck. Come to me for one session when you're stuck. We'll get you unstuck. And then if you want another session, you can have it. It also comes from thousands of hours of working with accountants, lawyers, and high performers. And actually, they don't need me all the time. They just need to get going. They know what they need to do. So the context of flip, where it's ideal, is for somebody who's procrastinating, stuck, can't see the wood for the trees. Maybe they've got what they think is imposter syndrome. Maybe like loads of people, I want more confidence, Rob. Everything's contextual. So working with somebody on, people say I don't have confidence. They do have confidence. They just don't have confidence in that context. And, we inhibit ourselves. So flip is ideal for when you're overthinking, overanalyzing, stuck, and you need to do something, but you don't know what to do. And so that's where I come in. And that's the perfect antidote for stuckness, if you like.
Yeah.
But the actual model is proven and it's validated because it comes from known evidence-based approaches to change.
Yeah.
And if you read enough out there about change, if you look at things like Atomic Habits, James Clear, small steps, do something that's, if we start on something small, we can get it done. And that's the whole purpose, to get movement.
What can you do today that'll make your situation a little bit better? Yes,
or one of the things I do. So what can you do in the next hour? What can you do in the next 24 hours? Yeah. What is possible?
It's so true that, I look at it in the sense of if I get a new social media client, for example, you're not going to build 100,000 followers in the next 2 weeks. You might get a fluke and it happened.
Yes.
But it's very, 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 I've never personally had it.
Yes.
It's going to be you're going to be an anomaly in that sense.
Yes.
But what can you do today? You can make one piece of content.
Yes. The other thing about flip that makes it different from, say, the grow model or other models, it's an interactive model. It's about change happens in the context of interactions. Yeah. It's about the conversations you have, and it's about who notices the change.
Yeah.
The problem with change is we don't notice change.
Yeah.
So part of the flip idea, part of the tenet of flip is my job is to help you become more aware. And when you start noticing change, it gets interesting. Otherwise, you get the situation, I haven't changed at all. There's no change. Well, what about that? You talked about anomalies or exceptions. What about that other thing? You said you're not good on social media, Rob, but you've posted all that. Yeah. We forget. So, we're what's that phrase? We're Velcro for negativity.
Yeah. It's like someone who wins the lottery, right? Like, you are an anomaly if you win the lottery. But on the flip side of that, excuse the pun, there is someone who wins the lottery every single week.
Yeah.
So anomalies do happen every week.
Exactly. And it's like the whole reason that the flip approach also comes from this working with addictions is people are not drinking all the time and they're not taking drugs all the time. Oh, well, I drink all the time, but not on a Thursday night. Why is that? How come? So getting interested in anomalies, getting interested in exceptions to the rule. You talked about NLP. We delete, distort, and generalize stuff. I'm never good at public speaking. Well, what about that time? Oh, yeah, but... So we're very good at limiting ourselves with language as well. And where flip is really interesting is the linguistics of change.
I love that.
The yes, but.
Yeah.
The yes and, the yes, buts. Yeah, I could never do that.
Simple wording shifts that make a big impact.
Word shifts can make a massive impact. Yeah. Word shifts can make a massive impact. The linguistics of change is fascinating.
Do you find with high performers, they talk to themselves in a different way than low performers, in that sense?
Well, the thing with me is that the experience I've had with high performers is when they are not performing high is when we're having the coaching sessions because they're stuck or they need to be better. So to the outside world, they are performing high all the time. To themselves, they're not. So one of my clients, he just has me coaching him all around flow. He has to do presentations. In one day, he might have to present to 300 people, 1,500 people, 5 people, do a pitch. He's working at such a high level. Yeah. But in this person's situation, he's really, really tough on himself. He's really critical about his performance. And the bit he pays me to remind him about constantly is practice.
Nice.
You can't get good at something like that. You've got to practice it. You've got to practice the skill.
Yeah. What I've noticed about yourself as well, Rob, is as time's gone on, you've done a lot of things. So you've been a filmmaker, you've been a branding guy, you've been a coach, did like different things. But one thing that's kind of risen to the top is you are a coach.
Well, I agree with you. I was going to disagree with everything you said then, but no, I am involved in wider areas. But at my core is coaching.
Yeah, I think that's where you're becoming really well known, and through the sessions that you've done with me, through people that I know, no one has had a negative experience or a negative word to say about any of the coaching you've done.
That's nice.
I think that tells a story of how you're impacting people in a positive way. So kudos for that.
Thank you. Well, I think coaching is a really amazing thing to do.
I think it is. I mean, it's as you say, like even the top coaches. I've seen a lot of coaches over the course of the years who have been great coaches and never made a bean.
Yeah.
And they end up going to do something else.
Yeah.
Because they can't make any money.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that you should be paid in line with the impact that you're making.
Definitely.
So for someone to be like a top 5% coach, self-proclaimed, not officially, but like I like that though. Like I like that.
Well, like you, I didn't tell you this story, but I worked for 12 years at Guy Ritchie's old school. And it was a special school with very special people. Yeah. Because everybody had a label there. Asperger, ADD, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, had all these labels. I loved working there because they misspelt the car park. And that was a school, misspelt the car park. But this was a school aimed at people with all these learning difficulties. So I spent 12 years working with people who could not play sport. Their perception, you talked about pigs. Perception was they couldn't play sport. Do you know how many rallies I got with those kids every term? Every term. Rally numbers. And I'm talking about not once, not twice. I'm talking about multiple times. They got certificates from me every term for the longest rally. Do you know what numbers we got to?
Hundreds.
458.
Amazing.
432. We got into the hundreds. And that's what started the flip approach. Make things simple. If you make the change simple, it helps.
Make things simple at work. I love that.
So do you know how I made it simple?
Well,
when you're rallying in tennis, how many people get a rally of 100? It never happens. But do you know where you get it? On the tennis court. And do you know where you get it from on the tennis court? If you look at the top players, before they go out and warm up, they spend time in the service box in a small place where it's easier to create the rally, but you get the feeling. You need to feel the ball.
I love that you worked in Guy Ritchie's old office.
Old school.
Old school, yeah. I mean, I was listening to Ray Winston in an interview. He was talking about something, and he had a bit of a fallout with Guy Ritchie apparently on the set of The Gentleman.
Okay.
They had a bit of a row, and you can just imagine them two going at it. Real blood and thunder stuff. But good pals, actually.
Well, you've got something similar to Guy Ritchie. You know what it is. He's big on jiu-jitsu. Yeah. He loves jiu-jitsu because it's a leveler.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great leveler.
It's, the biggest amount of humility builder ever.
Yeah, but what else is it about? It's about humility.
Well, it's what I always say is it's high-level problem solving with dire physical consequences.
Yes. Yeah. You're learning all the time, right? All the time.
And you're always on the edge, because if you make a mistake, you're going to get physically damaged.
Yeah.
Now, there's no punching or kicking involved in it.
No.
Which is good, in a sense. But you're still getting choked, and you're still getting potential arm breaks and, put to sleep. And
that's just the women doing that to you.
I mean, this is the thing. So I'm 38, 39 this year. There is kids in that gym who are 14, 15 who could wrap me up like a fucking pretzel, mate.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to be the fucking dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you're going into sort of bars and pubs and clubs, and you're seeing all these fucking tear-ups and kids on the street doing all sorts to each other. London, knife crime now is fucking out of control. All this stuff's going on. It does make you think fucking twice about where you're stepping.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, for me, jiu-jitsu is probably the most calm. Since I've started jiu-jitsu, it's probably the most calm I've ever been. Right. But it's because I'm outputting the most amounts of violence I've ever done. If that makes sense.
Yes.
It's such a weird contradiction.
No, I get that.
It's like every week I'm having men try and take me fucking arms off and my legs off. Fully grown men.
Well, look, I don't know a jiu-jitsu session because I haven't seen it, but I'm sure you're present. You've got that degree. You've got to be.
Well, if you're not present,
you've
literally got someone's arm around your neck.
Yeah, right. So you're present, you're aware, which means you're probably in a good learning state.
Yeah.
It means you're absorbing lots of information.
Yeah.
And you're in a good learning state, because if you're not present and you're not learning, you're going to get crushed.
Yeah, well, I would suggest that if you, I mean, you were literally got a fully grown man on top of you trying to take your arms off.
Yeah.
And if you're not, but at the same time, it's a weird thing. It's like, Mike Tyson says it, it's like you don't understand how violent I've had to be this calm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of like that. Like,
no, I get it.
It's most, honestly, genuinely, I walk around with just utter confidence now, because it's like, and I generally put a large portion of it down to that, but I love it. And I love that guy, Rich, he loves it too.
Yeah. I'm going to just talk about flip to get this bit in. But flip has been described by one of my colleagues I used to work with, who's an ex-tax partner at EY, as the Swiss Army knife of coaching. And I really like that, because the thing about a Swiss Army knife is that, I don't know if you've opened a Swiss Army knife, it's got this for this, this for this, but it's very, very flexible. So when I told you the story about teaching flip to Wicks and Travis Perkins, I wasn't teaching them how to have a conversation for an hour. I was doing exactly what I did at the law firm where I worked with the patent attorneys. I was teaching them to have a conversation that could last a minute, could last 10 minutes. When I first started working with the lawyers, I said to them, what stops you? What stops you having these leadership conversations? We don't have the time. So we did a 6-minute conversation where they all finished under 6 minutes, and they all got the result by using this magical flip. It wasn't that flip was magical, it's they asked some questions that meant that the person had to think it through.
Is there something that can be said for the fact that me and you sat here for over an hour talking without any sort of breaking interruption or flow or anything?
I think this is the warm-up, isn't it? This is the warm-up. When are we going to start?
We've just flowed.
But
we have conversations that do last a minute.
Yeah.
And we have just had a conversation that lasted over an hour.
Yeah.
Is there something to be said for that?
I believe so. It's because, again, going back to the inner game, you've got to go where the interest is. If you weren't interested in talking about this, you wouldn't be getting into flow.
I love it.
You have to get, you've got to have the focus of attention and the interest. If you're curious about something, you're very curious about people and why people buy and influence and coaching. We're bound to have a conversation.
I love it. Rob, we do have to actually wrap it up now, because...
No, you're just joking, because this is the warm-up. We've only just started. We've only been here 55 minutes.
I can't shut them off. Just to wrap it up, mate, if anyone is on the fence or wants to undertake some coaching with yourself, where's the best place to go and find you?
What I would say is, if you're thinking about having coaching, I only work with committed people. And so it's not about proving that flip works. Flip will only work if you're prepared to be committed and open.
Action takers only.
Action takers only. Well, action takers who are stuck and want to do something about it.
I love that.
Yeah. Where can they contact me? Just look up Rob Rave or at GameChanger_coach on Instagram. You can find me there, or you can find me on Move.
I love it, mate. Top Boy.
Top Boy. Have you seen Top Boy?
I've sort of seen Top Boy.
Do you like Top Boy?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's good narrative.
Yeah, it's good narrative. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's close. It's dramatized, but it's close to reality.
Right. I now know why we were talking about film in relation to coaching, though, and why it's so powerful. It's a metaphor as well. Films are metaphors for change. Mm-hmm. So any stories, you're a storyteller. Stories are change creations.
Yeah.
You know, you can create change through stories because they're meaning making.
Oh, completely.
Everything metaphorical is meaning making.
Completely. Thanks so much for your time, mate. I absolutely appreciate it. I could literally speak to you about this all day.
Well, we will now. We will.
And geek out about this all day.
We'll geek out a bit more.
So I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you.